Whispers in the grain silo. The moment my father shoved me out of the house, his face twisted with disdain, felt like severing the last thread of my already fraying sanity. "You'll bring disgrace to this family, you hear me?" he shouted after me, as if his voice could banish my obsession from existence. I'd been a fool for even daring to speak of my research, the phytopsychology that had consumed me since the day I lost my job at the grain silo. I did my best to ignore the laughter that followed as my mother joined in, her voice drenching the air with condescension. This is what happens when delusions take root. But now, years later, after a relentless pursuit of truths buried beneath layers of disbelief, I was finally ready to step into the light. I was no longer the mockery of a foolish dreamer. I was a renowned phytopsychologist, a voice that could no longer be ignored. As I drove back to my childhood home, the forest beside me twisted and swayed, as if it were alive, whispering long-buried secrets meant only for me. I had spent a decade deciphering the eerie crop silences, the unnatural, haunting stillness that fell over fields before tragedy struck. It was more than just silence. It was a deep, reverberating dread. I had documented the spectral energies that emerged from the roots of the very plants that sustained life. Energies that spoke of the past and tethered souls not yet ready to join the beyond. My family's laughter echoed painfully as I remembered their derision. They had not understood the horrors I had faced, nor the dark knowledge I now possessed. As I pulled into the gravel driveway, a shudder ran through me, one that felt all too familiar. My parents were still seated on the porch, their silhouettes visible against the setting sun. Time had not been kind. My father's hair had turned to wisps of silver, and my mother's hands trembled slightly. Yet they did not see the encroaching darkness as I approached. My heart raced as I stepped from the car, the familiar scent of earth and grain igniting a fire in my chest, the cusp of revelation married with dread. "I've come to speak with you," I announced, the tremor in my voice tempered by determination. Their heads turned, their expressions shifting from surprise to something unreadable. "I've discovered things, important things." My father scoffed, disbelief etched into his features. "Important? Like how to spout your nonsense to anyone willing to listen?" "Last summer, I studied the fields during the quiet," I continued, my voice growing hushed. "You remember that, don't you? The crops?" They hungered for something more. I swear I could hear them. My mother rolled her eyes, but I pressed on. "You need to understand that I've uncovered a connection, a bond beyond our world. The plants, they're vessels. They speak, they hold consciousness, and with it, they can bring forth the restless souls tethered to them." I could see the tension coiling between us. My father's eyes glimmered with something. Was it concern or fear? Maybe it was because I had advised against planting anything that summer, because I sensed a darkness lingering. Yet they had wanted to plant the corn, thinking the past couldn't touch them. That evening, as twilight fell, I gathered them in the living room, the old house groaning around us as I prepared to unveil my research. "I have brought something to show you," I said, my hands trembling as I laid an old journal on the coffee table. "It's a record of my findings, but it's also a warning." As I flipped through the pages, each one filled with notes on plants responding to spectral frequencies, I felt the air grow heavy, saturated with an ancient dread. "Did you know that some plants emit low-frequency sounds when in distress?" I asked, heart racing. "The corn, especially. It remembers." Just then, the room darkened as clouds rolled in, wrapping the house in a thick shroud of shadow. My parents exchanged nervous glances, but I pressed on. "The last time I was here, I felt the crop's silence, an absence of breath, as if the earth held its own secrets close." Before they could react, the floorboards creaked ominously, and one of the windows shattered, splintering the air with its ghastly echo. Outside, the storm unleashed a fury, howling like angry spirits. Then I heard it, a whisper, low and mournful, curling through the house. "Help us! Help us!" It thrummed through the walls, every grain of wood resonating with the chilling plea of the departed souls trapped beneath the earth. My heart sank as I glanced at my parents. Fear had replaced disbelief in their eyes. From the very walls, the whispers turned into a cacophony, resonating with the grief of those they had dismissed. "This is what you scoffed at," I whispered into the chaos. The voices of the silenced. Fingers trembling, I pointed to the worn wooden floor. "They've been calling out for recognition, for release." Then, as if answering the call, the ground began to tremble, the roots of the house shuddering beneath us. The echoes of anguished cries rose to a deafening pitch, almost drowning out my parents' horrified gasps. With my heart in my throat, I could only stand and watch as realization dawned upon them. This was the culmination of their mockery. The terrifying weight of their disbelief laid bare before them. I was a vessel, yes, but they were tethered to the very horrors they had dismissed. As the last remnants of light slipped from the windows, I felt a coldness wash over me. But it was accompanied by a strange sort of clarity. I had faced hell and survived, a guardian of the forgotten. When the chaos finally ceased, the house stood eerily still, silence enveloping us once more. But this time, it was different. It was a quiet filled with understanding and acknowledgement. "Do you see?" I asked, my voice strong yet trembling. "The cost of disbelief is not an absence, it's a sentence of isolation. You mocked me, but now you face the consequence of your ignorance." My parents sat frozen, their eyes wide with horror. But I felt no pity. I was no longer the disgrace they had cast out. I had become the vessel of truth, the voice of the very plants they had dismissed, the harbingers of the history they chose to ignore. As I stepped away, the shadows faded and the whispers quieted, leaving behind a poignant reminder of the cost it takes to confront what lies beneath the surface. The truth loomed, heavy and undeniable, forever entwined in the roots of the soil they once took for granted. I had emerged from the darkness, bearing a crown, one forged by the trials of the living and the whispers of the dead.